Hello, and welcome to the What About the World podcast. I'm your host, and this is a podcast where we ask unique and pressing questions, like the what, the why, and the how. In our last episode, we talked about the origins of patriarchy. Like, hey, why is it that we have he written all over history instead of they? In this episode, we're talking about talent. What is talent? Is talent real? And why is it important not to believe in it? Keep listening to find out. Have you ever met that one person who plays beautiful piano, and then the person to your right references the word talent in their next sentence, and we just nod along? It's so common, so normal to do, that we rarely take a step back and go, why is there this underlying belief that we have that we're either inherently good at something or we're not, or someone else is for that matter? The most talented people in this world are like the Picassos and the Mozarts and the Paganinis, who we say did unimaginable things that no typical person would be able to do because they're just so good. And all of this made me question talent. What is talent, and is it real? Talent is an abstract word, and when you're researching this kind of stuff, it's helpful to have the exact clear-cut definition of what you're researching. And so I thought the best thing to do when looking up the meaning of a word was, drumroll please, to look it up in a dictionary. And according to the dictionary, talent is natural ability or aptitude, or innate ability. And guess what? Natural and innate both reference back to each other in talent. It's all pretty vague and blurry, to be honest. So I said to myself, hey, they all reference each other, great. Geometry would be rolling around in its grave right now. But it brought up the important question, how can we draw the line between what talent is and what it's not? So to solve this problem, I looked somewhere that talent is used in the real world. You know, in business lingo, there's a widespread use of the word talent. They use it everywhere, like the VP of talent acquisition, but they usually mean it as skill in the workforce. Well, sorry fellow corporations, but that's kind of off the mark. Talent and skill are very different in the way that talent is considered kind of pre-programmed into you and waiting for you to, I guess, unlock it. Some people argue that talent can't be learned. Skill, on the other hand, is acquired. You have learned it through hard work after starting from scratch. This comparison between talent and skill gives us a more defined meaning of the word, like, hey, dictionary, do your job. And it's important to keep in mind as we discuss the real argument here. Is talent a thing? I like to start with the facts, and so to answer this question, I started researching and found that there's a lot of information on this topic, on Reddit. Yeah, such a good resource, right? Actually, there's not so much scientific research as there are people's opinions and people's experiences, and people they know's experiences. Because how do you measure talent? But one place that the existence of talent does show a promising scientific side is in the field of genes. Just as common as it is to hear about the word talent, you've also probably heard it's in your genes at least once in your lifetime, or that's where you get it from. It's a pretty strong and common argument that people that believe in talent use. In fact, it's so common that it has led to many gene ancestry tests over the past decade. If you don't believe me or you haven't heard of it before, let's start with the example of a gene called DRD4 that impacts your self-control and motivation. So next time you slack off on work, be sure to complain to your parents. Just kidding. I guess we can call it talent, but it's really on the boundary of the definition. Very borderline, actually. Because as we said before, some people argue that talent can't be learned. However, there's so many self-help books and programs that teach you to have more self-control, and many things out there that can help you with your motivation. Take charisma as an example. It's similar to motivation and self-control in the way that it's considered more of a you have it or you don't. The Harvard Business Review actually partnered up and found ways to increase charisma and charm in executives, and it worked, they say, and I quote, remarkably. So yes, it looks like genes are ingrained, but they're not. Genes are a complicated science. The field is relatively new and complex. Catherine Page Hardin, a psychologist and professor at the University of Austin, Texas, says that there's no intelligence gene, no depression gene, not even a tall gene. Wait, what? I thought there was a tall gene. So that's why it's very uncertain what genes contribute to us as a person, or if genes are part of talent at all. But hey, you might still be going like, yeah, even if we keep genes out of the equation, there are just some people that grasp things quicker, right? Let's talk about a game of chess then. Chess is like the trademark smart person thing to do. You'll see the characters with IQs through the roof of your house, will play chess in movies all the time. There was actually a study done to see the impact of someone's IQ that is often seen to predict how quickly you learn stuff on someone's chess performance. Researchers looked at a chess group of the best kids in a particular group. They found that between the best of the best, after enough practice had been done to reach a good enough level, kids with slightly lower IQs actually did better than the ones with higher IQs just because they practiced more. I'll leave what you want to make of that up to you. But I mean, remember the Mozarts and the Picassos and the Einsteins I talked about at the start of the episode? They still exist, right? They're proof that talent exists because no one else can do what they've done. Not really. If you look closer at each supposed prodigy, you figure out more about how there were a lot of different components involved instead of one overall God's gift that we call talent. Let's take Mozart. He was a prodigy if there ever was one. Many people know that he started composing at an early age and playing professionally even before that. But did you know he started practicing as young as 4, and his father, who taught him, was a renowned music teacher? I'm not discrediting him as a musician. I'm actually trying to give him more credit because when Mozart played the piano, it wasn't just talent, it was his life story. There is another natural we should talk about, Sam Snead. He's a little less known about than Mozart, but I'm sure all the golf fans here would know about him. He was called, and I quote, the most natural golf player ever. And his reply was not, oh yes, I'm talented. It was, my hands bled. Nobody ever worked harder at golf than I did. And now, you might be thinking that I'm a big supporter of the word practice. And yes, I am, but not in the way you think. There's a term called deliberate practice. It was coined by the psychologist Anderson Erickson. It's the type of practice that makes experts stand out. It's concentrated and focused and pretty tough. And I think it's important that we recognize it. But I think it only accounts for a portion of success. There's actually studies done on it. Numerically, the number is different in each field. Like, it's calculated to be 30% of the success factor in the music industry. But the exact number is not important. The fact that is important is that success and expertise are gained by practice, but not only practice. It's also gained by personality and persistence and opportunity and circumstances, and obviously practice. But we're kind of blind to all of that by calling it talent. As Erickson said in his book, Peak, greatness isn't born, it's made. And it's important that we realize this, because too many times we discredit ourselves and others by calling our skill, well, not skill. We try something for the first time, and if we decide we're bad at it, we just say, oh, I don't have the talent for it. We limit ourselves and make excuses. We need to realize that's not right, and recognize the potential in all of us. As Nietzsche said, no one can see in the work of an artist how it has become. Our vanity, our self-love, promotes the cult of genius. For we think genius as something magical. We are not obliged to compare ourselves and find ourselves lacking. With that, that's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune in to the next episode that's coming next month. And if you like this one, make sure to send it on to friends and family.
Don't wanna talk about the world, don't wanna talk about life with nuance anymore. Da da dum.